introduction to me, as James said, my name is Annette Minihan. You'll hear from my accent that I'm not originally British. Grew up in the south of Ireland, but I've been in the UK for about 23 years. Done a number of roles. Primarily, I was a recruiter in-house with a number of large organisations, building and restructuring their teams globally. And then more recently, I'm a career coach. And I work for London Business School, helping people decide what to do with regards to career options and choices for the future. So a mix and gathering from being a recruiter, the person who hires, to the person who advises students on what steps to take to get to where they want to go next.
Fantastic. And I think what is so relevant is that because your career spans recruitment as well as career guidance, you have a really strong overview, if you like, in terms of universities and how they affect people's careers. What would be really useful is, one of the things that as we come into this autumn, we're going to have a whole cohort of year 13s applying to university. Mm-hmm. They will be umming and ahhing as to what degree subject they should be doing. Do you have any, from a generalistic perspective, what are your views on that?
I think university and making that transition is a really interesting time in life. It's probably the first time that you've left home. You're, have a whole new group of friends. You're figuring out who you are and what you want to do, what the world might hold. And choice of degree is important, but sometimes maybe not as important as you think when you're making that first choice. And that's basically from my old age at this stage. And he's debating what he's potentially going to do longer term. And that choice of do you go to uni or not is really important. And I think the cost of university is a big factor and influencer. But equally, if you don't know what you want to do next, do you actually want to go and explore a little bit more? Give yourself choices, give yourself options. It's really interesting.
I think for certain professions, then we're saying that you do need to follow a particular degree course.
Yeah, so, anything medical really. Doctor, even nurses today, veterinary, in the medical side in particular. You don't need to do law at university to become a lawyer or a barrister. Sometimes it's helpful, but you don't need it. And I think the key to success, as much as possible, is trying to do a little bit of research in advance. The key to success is actually knowing as much about yourself as an individual, which I know is quite tough to do when you're 16 or 17. Yeah. And actually understand a little bit about how that world of work will basically play out for you, which again is really, really difficult. So there's a really interesting study that came out a couple of years ago from Deloitte's a HR report they do each year. And they mentioned something along the lines of, in the next 10 years, there's going to be a whole host of new jobs that come on the market that have never existed before. So it's really hard now to predict what the world of work is going to look like in the future, particularly in 10, 20, 30 years' time. So my best tip or advice at this stage is try to basically give yourself choices as much as you possibly can, based on who you are as an individual, what's interesting to you, and also how you naturally work and engage with the world. I think that's in order for parents to help their children, I think it's really important that once they've looked at a particular degree course, because fundamentally it's the degree course that's going to be the most important decision they make, it's then to look at the modules within that degree course. Whether you're doing a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Arts for the same subject can make a massive difference in terms of, for instance, how much mathematics there might be in that particular course. Other things that parents might be interested in helping with, I think, are obviously, once you've chosen the degree course, then have a look at the universities that are operating that degree. You might also be interested in location. So
your child might be more comfortable staying at home or might need to stay closer to home for whatever reason, or they may be very keen to fly the nest and go as far away to the other end of the country. I think those are all different elements.
I think it is, and I think it's like, from somebody, like my personal experience was, I went to university and I moved to a place that was 4 hours from home. And for me personally, there was lots of freedom to basically discover a little bit about who I was and, you know, how I was going to interact with the world. So I think the sort of growth that you get at university isn't just the academic side. There is lots of personal insights and growth, which is great. And sometimes having a little bit of freedom and a little bit of, I suppose, a sense of adventure to explore, not just the academic side, but the personal side is really, really important.
Yeah.
Because longer term, you know, we're basically providing this advice to hopefully help guide people on how to build a career, how to earn a living for the longer term. And ironically, and I'm not sure whether you would agree, but you know, a lot of what basically makes people successful in life, when they choose a profession, actually isn't the academic subjects. It's the ability to interact with the world, to work with others, you know, and the stuff, intangible skills, so to speak, that make such a difference, are valued, and things that perhaps isn't very much spoken about, is actually the group of people that you build relationships with. Using that awful phrase, networking, but the people who you interact with at university very often will actually stay with you and be part of your community for the next 20 or 30 years, sometimes maybe even longer. So you know, the relationships that you build while living in halls, maybe that first year, are very, very important and can have a vast impact on your career and professional choices.
A question here. Obviously, depending upon the demand for students with different degree courses, there is an enormous pay gap from people studying one course to another. You know, if you're going into banking as a sector, you can be paid extraordinarily well, or even better than some of the tech firms nowadays, the Apples and Googles of this world. Does that have an impact in terms of what degree they do you think?
I think the most important thing is to actually do and study a subject that really fascinates you, and that you really think you're going to enjoy. So the key to success is to be able, from my perspective, and I was a recruiter for 20 years, screening CVs, like you wouldn't believe. But the key to success is to show achievement.
Yeah. To
basically, ideally, to study a subject where you're actually going to come out with top marks. And it doesn't matter, what those marks are, depending on the different countries and nationalities and geographies, because you will basically describe a top degree in the UK as a first class honours. In the States, it will be your grade point average score.
Yes.
But what you basically are looking to do, for a longer term professional perspective, is show that you can achieve good grades, and show that you can achieve good grades consistently, so that employers will say, that's an indication that if you come join us and we give you a difficult challenge, that you'll potentially be able to work your way through it and also deliver.
What would you say to parents if they're trying to help their child and they don't know what to do? So their child, they're adults, they're able to vote and to drink, but they don't know what to study. What would you say to them then?
Talk to lots of people. There's some fantastic resources online, as we know. And I think very often, and from somebody who grew up on the west coast of Ireland, where it was a farming community, and I saw professions like medicine, veterinary, etc., teaching as a number of limited professions. It wasn't until I came to London that I realised how big the world is, how many things people can possibly do. And there's so many exciting ways of living a life and having a career. Just keep your options open as much as you possibly can. And if you follow your passions in something that you enjoy doing, you'll do it better. You're under less stress, greater chances of being a success. And having a curiosity and a growth mindset is really important. So when you're advising your son or daughter about courses, talk to people within your acquaintance, but maybe people who do something slightly different to what you do yourself. So if you're an accountant, well, talk to somebody who's in marketing, who's maybe working for, in IT, just to get some ideas of what their other professions are out there, and ask them, what their lives are like and what their careers are like, and also when they're hiring young talent into their teams, what they look for.
Okay, that's really interesting, and also keep the degree course as broad as possible, I guess. Or don't choose a course that's going to narrow down your options. Would that be fair?
If you're not sure what you want to do. Now, if you absolutely know that you want to basically become the next Steve Jobs, and that IT is your passion, well then of course you're going to do computer science.
Yes. Okay, good point. There's one other point that I would make as well on this, and as an employer, I think it's increasingly valuable to choose a degree course that has some form of work experience within it, such as a sandwich course. I think it makes you much more, I think it makes you more employable if you've got something that you can bring.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm a passionate believer about, real life experience. Of having something to bring to the table, and everybody needs to be able to have a story or two to talk about, to contribute. I passionately say you should, as a student, encourage your children to work, to gain experiences, even if it's just, as a barista in Costa Coffee. They will learn so much. Explore and experiment as much as possible. Do lots of different things, because you just never quite know what's going to trigger an idea of the career that you might want to go into. But when you go for interview, you will be asked, as a young talented student, what have you done before? So academics are brilliant, they're fantastic, but you need work experience, whether it's work experience from a sandwich course, or whether it's internship, or even just a Saturday job.
Yes, I think it's that experience, because no matter what degree course you do, even if you say you want to become a lawyer and you end up working for a law firm, you could specialise as a lawyer, but you might move into general management within that law firm, and it depends what skill sets that you build on and acquire during your tenure there as well.
It is, and also it depends on, and again, this links back to a project that you and I did a number of years ago, how connected you stay to reality. So encourage your kids to basically know the price of milk, to basically know how the world is working, so that they can actually contribute and make a difference for the future.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you very much, Annette.
Pleasure.
It's been really good speaking to you, and thank you for your time.
No, pleasure. Thank you.